Hello and welcome to our Digital Disruption webinar part 3 that Digital Strategies Group prepared just for you. Today we are talking about display advertising for publishers, their ways to do publishing and earn revenue in new revenue streams. And we would like to share with you 5 ways of turning content into revenue. So if you want to know how to use our screen and listen to our webinar, you can receive an email with the link to recording to the webinar, and at the edge of the screen you will find audience console. If you have technical problems, you have a little question mark. And of course, I would like to encourage you to ask questions directly to our speakers, to myself and my colleague. And we will be glad to answer all of your questions at the end of our webinar. So if you missed our part 1 and part 2 of Digital Disruption webinar series from Dinosaur to Unicorn, we would like to call you to visit our YouTube page, Searchmetrics, and find all of the webinars. So if you work in e-commerce industry or you want to know how to implement overall digital strategy, then listen to our webinars on YouTube. So today, we would like to speak, as I said, about digital advertising. I'm your host. My name is Svetlana Stankovic. I'm team lead of SEO consulting in Searchmetrics Digital Strategies Group. And together with me is...
My name is Björn. Hi, I'm the Director of Digital Strategies Group
of Searchmetrics. And today, the reason why we sit together here is because we also both have a lot of experience with publishing that we would like to share with you. Before that, we would like to introduce you to Digital Strategies Group, which is integrated consultancy within Searchmetrics. And our team of data scientists, content strategists, and SEO consultants and marketers are working on unlocking the mysteries of online performance since 13 or almost 14 years ago. Our goal is to lead innovation in search and content, and services that we offer as Digital Strategies Group are SEO consulting, content services, and strategic consulting, which is also related to our today's topic of digital transformation of companies. You can see some of our clients on screen now, and also we would like to start talking about super interesting topics. So I want to ask Björn at the beginning, can you tell us a little bit about your previous experience and why we chose you and myself to speak about this really interesting topic of publishing?
Well, I guess it's because of our meetup and because of our CVs, because both of us were working in publishing before Searchmetrics. So for me personally, I was working in Switzerland for a big media house there. It's called Ringier, and Ringier is operating, in different countries worldwide. They own 70 web properties, news pages, as well as lead generation platforms, as well as e-commerce shops, etc. pp. So, and my job actually was to, support the management in transforming the newsroom, which was a traditional newsroom, into the digital age. So I was building a team of 4 doing SEO and news optimization in a traditional newsroom. Amazing.
My experience is a bit similar because I was a part of Ringier as well. But I was working for a merged media company called Ringier Axel Springer, and I was leading digital marketing department that was also in charge of implementing digital transformation, SEO, unlocking new digital marketing channels. So I think we have, a lot of things to talk about now. So let's get started from content publishing markets in Germany. The reason why we are focusing on Germany, even though this webinar is in English, is because we have a lot of experience with the German market, and we are sitting in Berlin currently. So we can share some insights from German market, but overall digital publishing.
Yeah, and you can clearly say that, it doesn't matter which country you choose because the picture looks all the same worldwide, right? So, but let's have a look at the German market as it is now. So we just choose like the biggest media houses here, which still are generating billions in revenue in Germany. So first of all, we have Axel Springer. It's the biggest publishing house we have, headquartered here in Berlin as well. Then we have Bauer Media Group, Hubert Burda Media, Funke Mediengruppe, Holzbrink, and then one publisher who doesn't generate $1 billion, but 700 million. So this is the smallest one in our six.
The smallest one of giants.
The smallest one in giants, exactly. And if you might have heard, especially from Axel Springer, it's the Bild Zeitung. It's the biggest daily newspaper in Europe, actually. The Bild Zeitung has by far the highest subscription Europe-wide. And it's a boulevard desk newspaper here, similar to the Sun in the UK, and it's quite a big one. So, but let's just draw the picture until the internet really started to kick off. And for newspapers, newspaper were until 2004 a money printing machine. They had the newspaper. People were actually, booking advertising. People were subscribing the newspaper. People were buying the single editions, and people were putting classifieds into newspapers. So newspaper has been a money printing machine. And the funny thing with this is that they had a margin of it of between 30 and 40%. Can you imagine that if you sit on a revenue budget of $1 billion, that you keep 40% out of it as a margin? That's crazy. It's just insane. And if we then look at the development of the print edition for, as I said, the Bild Zeitung, it's a symbolic picture actually for the entire industry, because the printed edition since years is declining and declining and declining. So there are not even less circulation. There's not even less circulation. Every publisher needs to adapt to it, and is actually printing less as well. And that's what this picture shows. And as I said, it's symbolic for the entire industry, because all of the newspapers have the same problem. And there are smaller newspapers which are not, they're not existing anymore, because they clearly couldn't, handle the costs. And there are the bigger newspapers, the bigger newspaper who actually bought digital companies in order to compensate the loss in the print revenue.
We can say that this is actually the largest strategy for top publishing, is acquiring all of smaller businesses like classified businesses and small online magazines.
And if you look at the picture back at Axel Springer, the biggest publisher in Germany, 70% out of their revenue is coming from digital already. Okay, but the same goes with subscription. Not only the print editions and the circulation is declining, the subscriptions are declining as well. If you have a daily newspaper, which got sent out by post or by delivery to the houses in Germany or worldwide, then you can clearly see that the amount of subscription is going down. And here, the most dramatic part in this chart is actually it's going down mainly because all the people who have subscriptions, they are dying. Meaning that all the older people who have subscriptions are dying. The new, our generation and even the generation above us is not going into paper subscription anymore. So this is a business model which, will die with a demographic change of each and every country. And also, if you just look, and this is actually a funny slide, because if you look at the advertising revenue, distribution between, print and digital, you see that print, even though it's declining in editions and it's declining in circulation in subscription, even though the revenue made through advertising is still higher than in digital. So you see the bigger part here, the red bigger part is print and the smaller part is digital. Digital is growing, not that much actually, as you can see, especially in the last 3 years, it looks more kind of, steady.
And it cannot compensate the loss of offline publishing, which is really scary for publishers who want to focus on digital and drop out of print if it doesn't convert anymore. Exactly, and if you just look at the growth rate, this is the line in between. Even though it goes up from -6.
it's still a minus. It's not growing, but it's not losing that much anymore because print is somehow, digital is somehow compensating just a small piece of the loss of print.
This can also go hand with the story about dying audience. I don't like this term, but let's say about older audience who is not subscribing anymore. Because when you look at the status quo here, you can see that there are a lot of investment in print. And I can bet this can go to our first webinar series where we talked about digital transformation, that there are still a lot of companies who are investing in print. And we will talk a bit about converting print and online advertising. But definitely, this advertising doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Investments are still large, but there is no, I would say, return on investment as expected.
Yeah. So as we now, have drawn the picture of, publishing and losing revenue in terms of advertising, and now let's have a look what are the biggest threats actually for publishing houses in terms of advertising revenue. So if you just take the business model a newspaper until 2000, from 1950 to 2000 had was like they were writing content, printing it in the newspaper, and in order to monetize or support the journalism, they allowed to put classified ads in the newspaper, or they drove revenue through their subscription and the sales of single editions. Then, of course, advertising. You as a brand could book a whole page or a half page or just a small ad. And this is actually everything. This is everything a publishing house will build on in terms of revenue, right? And then in 2000, when the internet age started really to be big and it's getting bigger, all of those got not really replaced, but they hadn't any competition. And with the internet, the competition came. So for classifieds, we had pages like Craigslist, which came as a competition. For subscription sales, we had Facebook and Google as well, where people that doesn't need a subscription anymore because Google and Facebook were actually serving the content for free on their platforms. And for advertising, not only click-through rates, but also ad blocker is a big threat, which makes digital advertising or banner advertising actually obsolete. And if we just look at the example I just gave with Craigslist, is you can clearly see the revenue Craigslist drove since 2005 is impacting heavily the classified ad sales on newspaper, and it clearly has an impact, and it clearly says that Craigslist stole actually the whole market.
Audience,
or pages like Craigslist.
But if you remember at the beginning of publishing, switching to online, I remember there were pages with ads where you can see ad listings and classifieds listing, like people were selling cars and everything like furniture online, but then these pages somehow disappeared because I think conversion was 0.
Yeah.
And this made websites like Craigslist and all the others, even we can see that classifieds are also big in Facebook because we have a lot of buy and sell Facebook groups where you can even post an ad for free and target your audience directly.
Yeah, definitely. And even the publishing fees on pages like Craigslist or eBay or, are were much lower than if you put it in a newspaper. And pages like Craigslist, they not only came with a platform, they were so innovative and they had so much inventory. They were lower in pricing and listing fees, and they had a nice product which were constantly improved. From usability point of view, from the whole setup. And this is what newspaper actually missed. When transferred to digital, because they actually just started to copy paste what they had from print into, there was not a product focus. That's what I actually want to say. Secondly, if you just remember the first chart I showed until 2000, the revenue, when I said that there were money printing machines, with the beginning of the internet and actually the growth of the internet, you see that the decline in newspaper advertising dramatically dropped. The revenue dramatically dropped, and not only on newspaper but also in digital as well. And this has one reason, and this is the second pillar of the house I was showing, is that because Facebook and Google, they're owning the majority of the advertising business, and Amazon is actually getting into this as well with nearly 10%. But at that time, and when this chart was published, Amazon didn't have that much. But what I want to say is that Facebook and Google actually was stealing the whole advertising cake and owning them by themselves, and publishers are just now fighting and competing each other on a just small portion of the revenue.
And it's really hard to compete with Google News or Facebook Instant articles, where you can get all of the information inside of your social media, of your browser.
Yeah, and it's also about reach. People are on Facebook, people are on Google, or just the example you did, like on in the small niches like blogs. We're competing. We're a big competition actually for newspapers as well on specific topics.
Yeah, we can see this.
The reach moved actually from a newspaper to all those platforms.
Yeah, the line would be much higher if we start collecting information about blogs and influencer marketing, because in every niche you now have specific blog. Let's look at the fashion news. Fashion news is covered completely with influencers, YouTubes, podcasts, and so on. And also brands, they want to advertise there. They don't want to go to classic newspaper website and not to be sure if they will have any return on investment, when they can just approach influencer, for example, in fashion industry, that already has 2 million subscribers, and this is exactly persona they want to target.
Yeah. And this picture just shows the situation until 2014, right? So where we have an advertising market of $80 billion, and today the picture looks different because, Facebook or Google is owning much more today. Google is way over 100 billion today. Facebook is over what were they? They're like at 17. They're way over it. So the market is much bigger now, 4 years later. And as I said, Amazon is taking a big cake as well. And then, of course, ad blocker. Like when we speak about display advertising, ad blocker, a worldwide phenomenon. I love ad blockers, I have to admit, because
yeah, we all love it.
Because some publishers just took it too far with advertising, right? I mean, you get on a website and you get distracted by so many ads you just don't want to see. And even I know that you need to support journalism, which I'm highly up for, but not in the way to consume advertising, which highly distracts me from the content I want to read. So, and there's no wonder why ad blocker are actually on the rise. And since December now, Google Chrome actually has automatically an ad blocker there, which is against advertising, which goes against the guidelines, right?
I would like to tell a story about some of our clients that we have in Digital Strategies Group that are publishers, but also content clients, so having blogs or some niche industry content coverage. When we look at their website, and a lot of them are still using Google ad platforms, like Google AdSense or Google DoubleClick, in order to place banners on their website. And what they experience is when click-through rate for banners, so visibility of their banners and visits, drop dramatically, they try to use different placements. And rather than having few banners on strategic places that still perform a bit okay, they place tons of ads everywhere. Mm-hmm. And this is actually what is the main trigger why people install ad blocker. Because when you go to a publishing website, you want to read the news. You don't want ads to pop up everywhere. Yeah. I remember these horrible ads that were using anchor texts. You remember this? It was like 10 years ago. All of the words that were kind of keywords for a brand were marked. And each time when you roll over with your mouse, there is a pop-up coming from the anchor text. And it was so annoying. You couldn't literally read the whole paragraph of news because everything was popping up. And this is the reason, unfortunately, and I think when we look at banner performance, it's dropping year over year, and it will not come back.
The worst advertising I was actually seeing is, the mouse cursor on the website that they were advertising a car. I think it was a Ford something. And you know, while you were moving the mouse cursor, this little Ford car was actually stick to the mouse cursor and was moving on together with you. It was so annoying.
I remember snowflakes. Did you have snowflakes on publishing websites?
No.
Unfortunately, I don't remember which website it was, but around Christmas, you visit a website and snowflakes are falling all over the screen.
Yeah? No, I didn't. And also, like, I mean, this is just, you know, desktop, and I think on mobile, the rate is much higher today. You know, I rarely see, because I blocked, you can block it in iOS, you can block all advertising as well, and I rarely see on mobile advertisement. On top of this comes that it surely impacts the performance of the website, right?
And Google made sure to punish all of the websites that had intrusive interstitials and pop-ups, which were really annoying.
Yeah, exactly.
When you visit publishing websites, and there is a huge pop-up that you cannot close before you get news.
But there's still websites who are using this.
Yeah, and they're not penalized yet.
No, and there are even search engine magazines from the States who are using pop-ups on mobile.
Yeah.
But anyway, so if we look just at Germany, we are currently at 25% from an ad blocker rate. And I think the biggest threat to advertising is actually the click-through rate for display ads. And this is the average. Click-through rate from a Google Display Network. Is 0.05%. There's a nice quote from The Atlantic. They headlined it actually, was saying you're more likely to survive a plane crash than click a banner ad.
But this is the largest struggle for publishers, for everyone who worked in publishing industry or were close to publishing websites. They know how much struggle and frustration they have with selling and placing ads that don't convert.
Yeah.
And when we look at average click-through rate, it is so low that no wonder. But they all think, what's going on with us? Why cannot we convert? Something is wrong with these ads. We need to change placements. We need to have some different strategy, because Google is also supporting it. Google DoubleClick for publishers is a platform where you can target specific personalized content and place banner ads on your website. And this is what most of the publishers are using these days, especially the largest ones. So frustrations comes, of course, with average display ads.
Yeah, if I would be actually a managing director of a publishing house or any company, I would do this calculation. So what I did here is, you know, I took the CPM, the cost per mille, from Focus.de, it's a big publishing site here in Germany, which is 45 euros. So 45 euros for 1,000 impressions, okay? So that means that out of these 1,000 impressions with a CPM of click-through rate of 0.05, you get just a half click, meaning you need 2,000 impressions to buy one click, which means at the end you need to pay 90 euros for just one click, and this click didn't convert yet. You know, it's 90 euros for just one click, which is crazy.
This is really expensive.
How much content could you write for 90?
I don't know, but I know where would I invest, and this would definitely not be on banner display ads.
That's crazy. And then, of course, smart assistants will be definitely changing digital publishing in the long term, because this is actually audio related, and we will go into it later on. But now let's jump into actually the core of our presentation. We just wanted to draw actually a picture how the state of publishing is actually. And as I said, we took the German market, but this is, I think, is representative.
Applicable to anything, yes.
Every country. Okay, let's jump into 5 ways to turn content into revenue. We will go for content commerce. It's a nice concept out of the States. Podcast, of course, platform strategy, sponsored content, and video. But let's jump into the first example of content commerce. So I brought an example from Gizmodo. Gizmodo is tech review and news, and it's actually a mix.
Like a comparison website that promotes all of the tech products and gadgets.
Exactly, and it's really famous in the States. And what they do is, like, on their website, they always put a placement from this content commerce piece on the website, where you see here in the red rectangle. And if you click on this, you will land on on a publishing piece, which already says that this is not sitting in an editorial team, but apart from the editorial team, written content commerce, and they will earn on click-based.
So they will act as affiliates to the brand who is actually writing content pieces for the magazine.
Exactly, and if you just look at this content piece, it says here are the best deals for this week. So what they do is, like, they're partnering with Amazon, with Walmart, with all these platforms to say, hey, what are your best deals for today? And then they just write a piece of content and says these are the best flat screen TVs this week with the best prices. Then as you can see, you have here the affiliate link to Walmart, Amazon, or what you have. Sounds like a typical affiliate thing, which it is at the end. But for Gizmodo, it really pays off, because what they see is that they have conversion rates of 16% out of these affiliate links, which is a really, really good number, a really high number. And they already do a quarter of the entire publishing house revenue just out of these content commerce pieces. And there's a nice quote of the head of content commerce, who says, they're not just publishing those pieces, they're also optimizing it for every day. They're going into the pieces and changing links, changing offers, and redo and recycle those contents as well. They're not just publishing, forget, they redo it, and then of course promoting it everywhere on social media, etc. pp.
And many of our clients are using Searchmetrics content experience to actually optimize content, because I think a really important task for a publisher who wants to go through the path of affiliate is to find the right topic and to form content in a way that is really useful for a reader. So because when you look at the example that you just placed, you can say, okay, let's pick some topic or some product from Amazon and put really advertising content all around. But this is not the way. People are going to Gizmodo because they want to see comparison. They want to read about new additional, performances or new gadgets in the industry and so on. So this content really needs to be valuable. And this is something that many publishers and a bit of e-commerce companies do. They want to actually create meaningful content. And this is the story about informational content strategy that can be used anywhere. So if you're a publisher, I would say, think about using the software like our Searchmetrics content experience, where you can find what your audience is searching for and how to approach the topic when you write.
Yeah, and you can also, the good thing with this is you can play it on a seasonal level as well. If you have Christmas, you can, put Christmas gifts. You can,
exactly.
All the products people are actually liking to buy as a Christmas gift. Or, if you have summer holidays coming up, nice earphones, and stuff like that. So you can really play on a season or on demand with this topic, which is really nice, very flexible way. And it went so well for Gizmodo that they created a new platform out of this, which is called the inventory now. So as you see, Gizmodo generates nearly 76 or nearly 80 million visits per month, and it's referring 50%. So 10 million visits to the inventory, and the inventory just lives out of this referral traffic, which clearly pays off. The second example is sponsored content, and you might have come across sponsored content already, because it's not new. It's already been there out for quite some time. So one example here from Germany is Die Welt, and Die Welt is actually placing sponsored content within, on the homepage within all those editorial articles as well. So you can, not really see if it's an advertising, but there is one label. It's called sponsored, and it clearly shows that this is an ad. And of course, if you click on the article, you will see directly this piece of content was created by the branded studio. So meaning it's not sitting in a newsroom. It's a different department which just creates branded stories around this. And then you have a logo of this company with a nice ad here, and here again, sponsored label. And if you then look at the content piece itself, it's actually quite big. It's an informational piece of content. It's all about data here in this company, and it's actually, if you're interested in it, it could be an interesting piece of content and doesn't hurt that much like, display advertising. So the third example is actually platform strategy. And here's an example from Axel Springer here in Germany as well. What they do is similar to Gizmodo. So they are linking from the biggest newspapers into a new platform they just created. It's called Techbook. So they're using the reach they have with the newspapers, creating a new platform, and then referring the traffic to this platforms. These platforms are, this in particular is all about tech news and tech reviews. And same here, so they write an article or a story about a certain tech gadget and how it impacts the health of kids, for example, and then place a relevant Amazon link in this one. So they don't place it on Bild or one of the news sites, but they're referring into a relevant content hub, and out of this relevant content hub where people are interested in this piece of content, they are linked to Amazon or what you have. And if you just look at some similar web data, they're generating already some nice
traffic from organic.
Yeah, traffic from, and it works for organic as well. It's not only referral, but it works for organic as well, which is good because then you're not relying just on the reach the news site has, but you have a different you're generating actually a different traffic stream, which clearly shows that the content itself, it's actually okay written. It's not, too short. It's not, something they just write for the purpose of, linking to other sites and, advertising. Because if you just throw it in our content experience, you see they have an okay content score. Keyword coverage could be a bit higher, and so. But what I want to say is like it's okay optimized. It's an editorial piece of content rather than just for the sake of advertising.
Yeah, interesting to see there is actually that a lot of publishers are trying to find their niche focus and build the small websites like hub websites that will talk about specific topics. But I don't know if any one of them did create a small hub for news, for daily newspapers. This is something that doesn't convert, for example. If we look at larger publishers, they usually create hubs about products or health or sports or something else. But if you look at their core business, which are daily news, this is the place where they have the most of the problems. And I think the next one, next of our suggestions that belongs to podcast will cover this and how to use this content that is predominant content on your website and how to convert it.
Yeah. So the fourth example is actually podcast, and podcast is not new, but gains a lot of interest now for publishers. And I just took this from the last Reuters digital news report, which you can look up at Google. It's a big study Reuters does every year about, what publishers think will be most important for the next year. And most of the publishers ask in this, in the study think that audio represents a big opportunity for the future of publishing. So 75% actually agreed on this saying. And they also think that smart assistant and voice will be actually something media needs to invest much more over the last years. And from my, this is my personal feeling and my, the way I see and treat voice search and think about voice search, I actually think this will be one of the biggest opportunity and a revenue opportunity for publishers. And this is actually, perfectly underlined by the first example I have here is from a publishing house in the US. It's Ringer. And the Ringer is a sports website which published a podcast called the Bill Simmons podcast. And the Bill Simmons podcast is a podcast about, NBA and NFL stuff. So it's sports. So they speak nearly almost 2 hours of just about sports. What they do is like they have always one advertiser who's representing the podcast. In this case, a ZipRecruiter is a recruiting platform, and it will be labeled as presented by, but also this Bill Simmons guy. He is in the beginning of each podcast. He's explaining it's represented by ZipRecruiter and explaining what they do and why they are so good, etc. pp. And it clearly pays off because they generated just over $15 million in podcast ad sales in 2018. They have an average download per month of 35 million, which is a huge number, right? So it clearly has a potential to advertise. And if you want to listen to it, there's a Spotify link here. And the second example is actually here from Germany. It's the online marketing Rockstar podcast, and I see them as a media house as well because they're publishing so many different formats and so many different stories. Even organize a big conference here in Germany. So for me, it's a media house actually, and they have a nice podcast. Actually, one of the most interesting when you work in online marketing podcast. And there was a study just recently who said that in Germany the podcast ad sales will reach 700,000 euros. And then there was an interview with the head of podcast at Online Marketing Rockstars, and he said yes, he read the study, but their podcast ad sales will be significantly higher in 2018. So that's why I put here 700,000 plus on it, and they do a nice job actually. So now they have 20 different podcast formats. So they go much more into verticals, media. Then they have the Ask on Air podcast, and they have the regular podcast. So different podcasts, and what they do is always in the beginning they're representing their advertisers and telling what they do and why they are so good. And in the middle of each podcast, they do a commercial break as well, where they just, reminding them about their advertising, which is a really nice way. And especially the original Online Marketing Rockstar podcast with Philipp Westermeier. I mean, he's a guy who you would trust. Or not only trust, but he transfers the message, so much humanity that you don't think it's disturbing advertising. It's just into his being. It's really nice done.
It's native.
It's native.
Yeah, advertisers would say it's native. Yeah, this reminds a lot about YouTube ads because they also have pre-roll ads at the beginning of video and mid-roll ads in the middle of the video.
Yeah, it's the same system.
So they are using the same system also for podcasts.
Yeah, and why is that so important? Because, of course, I see podcasts as the new publishing, with digital publishing with revenue opportunity, because we will have much more smart assistants in future, and not only an Google Alexa or Google Home, but if you look into the way how they integrate smart assistants into our environment, you have cars coming out who are already integrated a Google Home or an Alexa, you have fridges, you have different devices within your natural environment which have a smart speaker. So you're actually asking your device for the latest news or for some stories, and the only way you can serve this is through audio. and Smart Assistant will not show you in display ad, that's for sure. So you have to put your news into audio and then think about how to monetize those audio streams.
It will be interesting to see how radio was affected by podcasts, because I think this is the highest threat. We used to listen to radio stations everywhere, even with our smart assistants and with our mobile phones and devices we use. We somehow got this feeling that we can use our favorite radio station in a car, on our mobile phone, and so on. But with the rise of podcasts and the coverage of topics, and it's more and more, and now when you see that publishers are transferring to podcasts, and you have a really first-line professional speaking about their topic, this is not anymore a podcast of some nice YouTube star or something else. Mm-hmm. Now you have really professional podcasts that you can listen, and I think this is the largest threat for radios.
Well, I didn't listen to radio since, I don't know,
I must admit I did.
Proactively, since 5 or 10 years, I didn't listen to radio.
I must admit I did, but my listening was always related to some interesting shows, like talk shows that radio stations had, and I completely transferred to podcasts, I don't know, several years ago, and now I'm listening only podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's your demand. You just choose what you want, and that's why podcasts is the same with Netflix or Spotify, You are in control of what you want to listen to, and that's
it is user-centric and completely customized.
Yeah. Okay, so the last example we have is videos. Videos are a nice way to, generate revenue as well. As we see from this example of my old employee, it's called Blick. It's a boulevard news site in Switzerland. And what they do is they do video advertising in cooperation with online shops or different advertisers. And this is just one example where they publish a video. It's called, Uncorked. There's a wine guy, a guy who really knows wine because he's making his own wine, and he's actually tasting different wines out of this shop, and is telling a story about it, what terroir was built, a nice story about the winemaker and stuff like that. And I just want to show you one example, so that we will definitely jump into the video that you can see this, because it's really, really nice. So let's have a look at this. Do we have some sound? Here. Okay, no sound, but I can tell you that he's explaining, where this wine is coming from and what terroir was built and so on and so forth, and then he's tasting it. It's a very nice way, and he's a really nice guy. It's you're really listening you're really watching the whole video, because he's so good in what he's doing. And at the end, they just have a small, as you can see, a small advertising here, which says this is the name of the wine, and you can buy it on wineclub.com, which is really nice done. It's an editorial piece, a content marketing piece actually, in a video format, which is not, it's not disturbing at all. It's informative, and it's really nice done.
And it's nicely incorporated in the whole story, because I must admit I would watch this video as well because of my interest for wine industry. Yeah, and I would probably buy this even. If you have trust in the person who is recommending, you would probably like to try it as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And this is how advertising should look in these days. We should not push and force people, because they will definitely not watch your banner ads and read about the content they're not interested in. But if you can provide your visitors of website with real value and offer them content that is really engaging and interesting with high click-through rate, then they would be even happy to see what to buy and what kind of recommendation you, as a professional in some industry or in some niche, would recommend.
Yeah. Okay, Svetlana, then please wrap up.
Yeah, so our key takeaways for today. I really hope you had fun watching this video and that we inspired you to get to some new ideas of how to advertise and how to transform digitally your publishing company or maybe small publishing or news blog that you have. So our key takeaways for today is, first one, print business model doesn't work digital. So if you have a company or you are working for a company that is print publisher, please make sure not to copy content from print to online, not to copy your offline strategy for advertising to online, because it simply wouldn't work. So split the newsroom, have editorial dedicated to online, and try really to understand who is your audience, what they want to listen, and how to get to them, and also how to build trust, because I believe trust is the most important thing that you can have in online world. Don't try to fake it, and don't try to push selling of products in a way that your reader will not like it. Then we have a second one, Facebook and Google, and as Björn mentioned, Amazon as well, are sharing a large piece of advertising cake, and publisher getting the crumbs. This is huge red spot for everyone who is working in publishing. So try to build content hubs, try to have your own Facebook pages, try to be visible in Google and use SEO, and also use digital marketing to reach to people organically, to build trust. Build small communities on Facebook where you can talk about the topic, where people can ask you questions, and make sure to interact with them. So don't be afraid of Facebook and Google. The way they try to use you, you need to flip around and try to get use of them, because their coverage is massive. Click-through rates and ad blocker, making display advertising obsolete. I have a story, I need to mention it in this key takeaway, that one of my friends had cooperation with one of the largest publishers, and actually it was a compensation deal, and they offered her placement in display ads. And what happened is that this display ads had massive number of impressions, something like 500,000 impressions, but there was no single click on her website business. And when she checked it, she said, I don't know how people buy this, because simply no one clicks. I had no feeling that 500,000 people saw this display ad. And this is exactly, if you are a publisher, you need to get your focus out of display advertising and to think smartly, to think in a new way of thinking, and to really incorporate digital in all parts of your business. And the most important key takeaway is that alternative content formats can drive additional revenue. And I think, Björn, it would be really, really cool if we can hear the quote you left for the end regarding yes. publishers and content marketer, because this is, I think, the key takeaway that I would like everyone to take away with them after this webinar.
Yeah, there's a nice quote. You know, I did a podcast once with Veronika Kushinskaya. She's working at Blick, and she's working as a content marketing strategist. And, you know, why we were doing this podcast, I was asking her if she is visiting conferences. So she told me that she went to Cleveland to this Content Marketing Institute conference. It's a, you know, it's a very famous content marketing conference. So she went there, and she said, you know what's funny? It's like, you know, if you sit on conferences like this, the people are always claiming and saying that, you know, content marketers need to be a bit more like journalists. And at the same time, if you're sitting in a newsroom, the people are always saying that, you know, journalists should be a bit more like content marketer. And I think the you know, the truth is in the middle. And I think this is a nice closing, you know, quote.
It's a combined expertise.
It is. It is.
Like our expertise to lead innovation in search and content.
If you need any help with your strategy, you know, content strategy, content production, content audits, if you need help with SEO consulting, anything when it comes to strategic consulting, just get in touch with us. Searchmetrics.com/DSG. You can contact us directly. Thank you for listening to today, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.